Okay, good.
Okay. Forgive me if I sound like I'm reading. Welcome to Fred Toye. Fred has built a career in entertainment and storytelling that can serve as a model for those of us in the audience who consider ourselves filmmakers. He started in the business as a production assistant, soon moved to visual effects and editorial, and earned credits on landmark films like Forrest Gump, The Addams Family, Courage Under Fire, and Men in Black. After more than a decade of experience in post-production, Fred took those storytelling insights developed in his work on The Final Rewrite, as editing is often described, and stepped into the director's chair on a number of successful TV series: Alias, Lost, Fringe, CSI, and The Good Wife among them. He continues to work steadily with prominent assignments on recent shows like The Walking Dead and The Boys, Watchmen, American Gods, Fallout, and winning the Emmy for Best Directing on Shogun this year. The director's role in series television demands skill and wisdom. That, in a nearly parallel world of independent film, will make invaluable tools for anyone seeking to reach an audience with powerful storytelling. It's safe to say that Fred Toye has mastered them. We're incredibly lucky to have him with us today.
Yay! Thank you.
Fred, I'll start by going to the basics. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, your path, as I just described briefly?
Yeah, sure. I was an actor in high school, and I loved the theater. I had really no one in my family directly that was in the film industry, but I certainly was. I had arts in my family. My great grandmother was an opera singer.
I'm going to move over here so you'll be talking about.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. So I had arts in my family, but I didn't really sort of gravitate towards film right away. But I definitely was interested in it, and so I was acting, and I realized pretty quickly, when I was about 15 or 16, that I wouldn't be an actor because I didn't have the personality for it. But I loved TV and movies, and so I especially TV. I was obsessed with TV. And so I got to think about directors and directing, and so I sort of made it my goal when I was about 17 or 18 years old. And when I decided that would be my goal, was that I wanted to be a director someday, it made everything really simple. Because I ruled out all kinds of other things I could have been. I could have been, I could have been a barista. I could have been a farmer. But instead, I chose to be a director, and the fact that I was able to focus on it meant that I could really sort of think about, well, what's the pathway to get there? So for me, I got a chance to work in all kinds of different departments, starting as a gopher or a production assistant and a runner, and running scripts to people's houses and getting hamburgers and food and all that stuff. But really with the goal to learning how can I be a creative person. And then ultimately, I worked on set, and I thought, I could learn filmmaking from being on a set, watching the various crafts. And I did. I worked on set for a really long time, and I loved it. But to be a real storyteller, I felt as though I needed more of a deeper education. I went to UC Santa Barbara with Simon, and I had learned film theory, and I was obsessed with old films. And I realized that editorial was really the best way to learn, to become an editor. So I worked as an assistant film editor for a number of years, and then I was an editor for about 12 years. And through editing, I think I really learned my best sort of focused skills on storytelling. And then ultimately was given the chance to direct in television, and that was 20 years ago. So I started to direct then. And I still have a long way to go. I have a lot more that I want to do. I have a lot of things that I'm really excited about. And for me, it's been a lifelong journey, and I've loved every bit of it. So that's sort of the basic origin. Kathy.
When you first got your jobs as a gopher,
Yeah.
and you became an editor, were you at a particular studio, or did you jump?
So at first, when I was at school, somebody put one of those flyers up where you have the little tag that with their phone number on it. Yeah, and so I tore off one of those things and I called and I said, can I work on it? And I ended up working on a TV movie, and then from there, just by being a positive person and being sort of enthusiastic, someone recommended me to another person, and then that person invited me to another show. And then I had another sort of interaction with somebody. I became a Universal Studios tour guide. So I gave tours at Universal from 85 to 87. And at that, and you know, had no real connection to me getting a career, but one of the guys that was a tour guide with me was a production coordinator at a company called Ohlmeyer Communications, which a guy named Don Ohlmeyer, who was kind of a big sports dude back in those days. Known, he's no longer with us, but known as OJ's last friend. Anyway, Don Ohlmeyer hired me to be a PA because I met that guy through Universal. But effectively, like, I just took any opportunity I could take to sort of like meet people. Like anytime anybody was like, hey, you want to go do this? I was like, sure. So that's kind of how I made those connections. It was like not being too picky about like what I worked as a grip, an electrician, I worked as a camera assistant, I pulled focus on things, I was a camera loader because I just wanted to learn. So like, I guess the bottom line is like, I just took whatever opportunity would come. Yes?
Don't you agree that, because you just said that where you were doing like a bunch of different jobs, don't you agree that's like one of the most important parts when you're becoming a filmmaker is to know the different things, even if you don't stay in those parts of the job? I know like that's the thing, that must be a thing you guys
We share that,
have in
yes.
common. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he does everything, and I think it helps to make him aware of what it takes. Do you find that?
100%
Yeah.
correct, yes. So, and it isn't, I want to say very positively, yes. I tried a lot of different departments so that I could understand and educate myself, not assuming that I would be a camera assistant for life, knowing that I wanted to be a filmmaker, storyteller, director. Specifically, not a producer, not a writer, not an actor, not an executive, not a mogul. Like literally, I just wanted to direct. So it made it simple. But in order to learn how to do that, I needed to learn other jobs. And it's really, really super important to my education as I was working my way up to sort of understand, like fundamentally, what is it, why does the camera need 3 assistants? Like, what are they doing? What's that guy doing? And not so that I could get in their rice bowl, but so that I could understand that, like, okay, we're ready to go, what's happening? And they go, well, we need to go get that. And I'd be like, oh, I get it, because we did a film break that went to the lab. We're waiting for the stock to come in so that we can reload because we're changing stocks. Like all of those kinds of things to me are critical to my job, because if I sit there with a megaphone and I start yelling at people because we're not going, it's ridiculous, stupid, and a waste of everyone's time. So if somebody says to me, well, the problem is that we don't have the film, I can educate, from an educated point of view, say, I understand, we need to wait for that. So part of like learning everybody's jobs is like the ability to know the resources that you have available to you so that you can utilize them to make the story.
What's unique about, I feel like directing for TV is unique versus say like independent film directing, and so could you describe kind of what the unique relationships are with, say, the writer's room, if there is one, or if you're sometimes writing, and also showrunner, and like how that all works as a TV director?
It's, it is unique in that way, in the sense that like the TV business, or in terms of the TV model, which includes streaming, is that it's a writer-driven medium, right? So the showrunner, who is a writer, generally speaking, the showrunner is the person that sort of like is ultimately responsible to the studio for the delivery of that product. In the case of a feature film, the director is the ultimate stopgap of the story. So like effectively, like when a studio makes a deal with a feature director, even if it's a big writer, the feature director ultimately is the one that does the final cut with the studio notes and all that. And in TV, it's the writers, right? So learning to have a intimate relationship with the writers is a really critical part to being a TV director. Understanding what it is that the director does specifically in a streaming or a TV platform is critical to having a voice, because, as I said, the ultimate sort of like final answer comes from the writer in terms of the power of who's delivering the product. But as a director, your whole point is to be a storyteller and to have a voice. So how do you have a voice when you didn't write it? That's what you learn as a television director, is like that voice comes through in very, very specific and unique ways if you understand how to utilize it. A lot of people, when they're just getting started, they go, oh, I got a really bad script. It's like, and I always say, no, you didn't get a really bad script. You're the director, right? And it's like, you can make it yours. You can find a way to make it yours. You can work with the writer and rewrite the scenes if you need to. You can shoot them in a different way. You can look at the perspective that the story is coming from and try to understand the fundamental way in which that story should be told and pitch that version. So to me, I don't find television to be limiting in that respect. I think that finding a voice as a television director is challenging, but finding a voice as a movie director is equally challenging. I get more opportunity to do it. So that's the one thing that I find is like, I feel like TV is like a film school because I get to, I've directed 130 episodes of television. I found ways of discovering how to speak really clearly. And I've had a lot of people say, you know, wow, I could tell that you directed that episode, and how did you do it? And it's really because I've found a way to understand like how to read the DNA of writers and read the DNA of stories and make it my own.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm really curious about like the kind of the day-to-day of it too, though. Like,
Mhm.
so once a script is, say, locked, is it kind of handed off? Is there a lot of ongoing dialogue with the writers, or like what
For me, there's a lot of ongoing conversation. I've been very fortunate in the last few years, just having done it for a long time, that writers want to collaborate with me. I find that there's an open dialogue where if I get a script and I say, hey, I will usually have a director meeting like right away. So I'll go like, hey, this is what I'm reading, and let me pitch you a couple of ideas, and let me pitch you like where I think this should go. And so those open conversations are critical, because obviously if a writer just hands over a script and says, go make it, it makes it a little bit more challenging, because there are things that need to be adjusted based on the locations and the actors' availability and all the stuff that needs to go into that. But the day-to-day of it is you would have the showrunner, writer, and hopefully they're the person with you through the production, but they would basically sort of like, you'd have meetings with them initially, and then usually they either assign a writer to be with you on set, or they'll just say, go do it, and you don't have a writer on set. When you have a writer on set, what I find it's helpful to do is to go like, when a new idea comes up and you're like, kind of like, hey, this is really cool, it's raining, and I think we should do this thing. You can go, this is a cool way to do it, I think it'd all be done in one shot, and go like, as long as it's cool, this is the story that I'm gonna tell, does that line in sync with what you had in mind? Because I'll often be changing scenes and changing dialogue and changing stuff, but I do want to deliver as a person who's handing off the creative aspect of the storytelling to the writer.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I'm providing what ultimately they know that they can sort of sell.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that if you're focused on a specific episode, they may know things about later episodes or earlier episodes that might play into those
Totally.
decisions.
I try to get educated on that as well too, because it's sort of like if I read something where a character is going in a certain direction and I have a sense that this means something in the greater context of the story, I definitely ask those questions, because I not only want to know because I think I can tell a better story with the information, but also when I talk to the actors are going to ask specific questions about where this is going, and I can make the choice to say, I know where it's going and here's why we're doing it. I can also say, like, you should really live in the moment. You don't need that information. So the more I know about the overall story, the better. But also as an actor experiences it, a director experiences it the same way. There's like a thing of like knowing too much may not necessarily benefit the story, because you may want to literally just be in that moment. And if you don't experience the terror of that moment, even though you find out 2 minutes later it was a gopher, like you're not telling a good story.
Fred, there's a lot of, certainly differences, as you're talking about, between a director in television and a director in indie movies. Can you talk about the overlap, the similarities, the challenges that you face as a TV director in terms of budget or
Mm-hmm.
other restrictions that
Independent film
Yeah.
experiences. First of all, the thing that I was mystifying to me was that like I had thought that there was some sort of golden briefcase of money when you worked on larger budget projects, and that there would be unlimited resources and you could do whatever you want. And that's not true at all. There's never enough money. There's never enough time. Everything is always some version of a compromise. There's no sort of like my vision thing. I don't think that exists. If some people, it might. I mean, I think if certain filmmakers get what they want all the time. I've never experienced it, even if I have a big budget. So the acceptance and understanding that you're never going to have everything, that you have to just, it's going to be some version of a compromise, but then saying to yourself as you do it, the compromised version of what I'm making is going to be better than the version I would have done had I had everything I needed. And that's been 100% true almost always, where it's like you have 10 minutes, you have one of the actors isn't there, and all of a sudden you have to tell a story about loneliness or whatever, and it's like, well, it was a whole dialogue scene between these two actors. I now only have this one actor. It's like, well, take that 10 minutes, shoot the one shot that is going to tell that story, and most of the time it's a better scene than the one you would have shot. So to me, I welcome challenges, creative challenges. I'm not happy about it. Let's say I want to do a scene with like a whole bunch of cars on a freeway. It's like, oh, you get one car and they're not closing the freeway. It's like, well, that sucks, because I would have loved to have done some crazy sequence, like in La La Land where everybody's dancing on cars. Well, I can't do that because I don't have the resources to do it. Well, I got to invent something that's going to be better. And as long as I know the story that I'm trying to tell and I have a really deep understanding of like basically what the intent is, then I have to just put on my creative hat and do it. So I think the similarities between independent filmmaking and television are limitations, embracing limitations that you have and accepting them, finding ways of sort of creatively getting through problems, which I think happens with independent films. Like in the smaller films that I've made or worked on, I've always looked at it as like, okay, that didn't happen the way I was supposed to happen. That sucked. And you watch the show or the movie or whatever that you did, and you're thinking to yourself, none of these things happen the way they were supposed to happen. And yet you look at someone who watches your film and they're crying and they're like, I was so touched by that. And I'm like, well, I fucked everything up, right? But what came through was the intent. The intention of the storyteller was there. It was there even though you didn't have the lighting or you didn't have the actor. It was like the soul of the story existed, and you understood the soul of the story, and you told that story with the resources you had available. You don't need a fancy camera, and you don't need special lighting. Like literally, you just need to know what your story is, and you have to speak from truth. So I think that applies to television as well. To me, it's like, even though maybe I didn't write the episode or that it's not my favorite show, I have to find a soul in each story that I tell, and I have to believe in it. And I always do. I always fall in love with the story at some point. You know what I mean? It may not be the first reading of the script. It could be like once I've started shooting, but I always fall in love with the stories. Because if I don't fall in love with them, then they're not going to be that great. So to me, I think those are the similarities. I don't know if that tracks.
Could I follow up?
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation as an independent filmmaker with shorts right now?
Mm-hmm.
If we want to break into episodic, like how do we do that these days? I know
Yeah.
it's like taking everything we can get, saying yes, but the industry has shifted a bit.
Yeah,
I'm just
totally.
curious.
I think that I've found that there's lots and lots of opportunities. I'm involved in hiring directors these days, so I get involved in these meetings and I hear from I'm speaking to the streaming, like right now I'm working for Amazon mostly. I listen to the conversations of hiring, and I listen to how the information comes through. And effectively what happens is there's everybody, it's a big community conversation amongst, let's say in the case of Amazon, there's Amazon as a company, Amazon as a studio. Then there's a studio, usually another studio that's producing it. And then there's the producers of the show specifically, and then there's the executive producer and the showrunner. And everybody puts together lists of like, hey, I've seen this thing, and I work with this person. So effectively, it's like, it isn't this one person's decision. It's not like if you got to Jeff Bezos, somehow you'd be directing a show. It doesn't work that way. It really works in terms of like, you have to be heard by somebody, and somebody has to have sort of seen your stuff to say, I think she'd be amazing for this show. I saw this thing in the short. So the things that happen when you get, like let's say you make a short and you show it at a festival, and somebody approaches you and says like, hey, I know somebody at a management company, like, do you want to just have a chat? Yes, tomorrow. Like, have that meeting immediately. Like, get to a place where people can get your name and your movie indoors to have conversations, because even those general meetings where you have a general meeting with a studio and they say like, hey, we love your stuff, what do you want to do? You really, really have to jump on it when it happens. So to me, it's like, even if it seems like a casual, like, hey, whatever, like if you're trying to get into Hollywood filmmaking, I think you have to be heard. People won't pick you up off of just randomly. It's like people opening doors just by saying, hey, you want to do, you can just meet these people. And it doesn't sound very big deal, but like anything, it's just embers. And it catches fire once people start speaking about you and they put your name in something. It may not be the first one, may not be the second one. And then the other one is like, if you can get in the door with a studio or a show, the first thing to ask for is like, can I shadow? Can I please shadow? And if you can get an opportunity to shadow a director, what happens is, and I would recommend, if you have you guys ever had a chance to shadow? No, nobody? Have you?
It's in the works.
It's in the works. So if you go shadow somebody, make sure that there's a couple things I just want to just advise you about doing it, because I have shadows I almost always have them. The thing is that you want to be fully present for everything, meaning like, come to the prep meetings, be there on time, like be there at call, stay till the end, like show up for the whole thing. That's a really important part of it, because I've had a lot of shadows who are like, they come in for a big scene and they're like, hey man, I'm cool, you're cool, I'm cool, okay, let's go. You have to show up, but also you have to know that it's literally a shadow. You have to like be kind of invisible for that person. So like, you're in those meetings and you have to be kind of make sure that you're invited and that you're there, but also like read the room. And if it's not the right time for you to be in that moment, get out. Because I've seen shadows go like, you told me I could shadow. And I'm like, yeah, we're having a meeting about how we don't have any money. And they're like, how am I gonna learn if I'm not in this meeting? And it's like, okay, goodbye. And then that person gets sent home. And it happens a lot. Like, so shadow is a very delicate thing, but it's an incredibly great opportunity for people to learn how it's done, how do you get through meetings, prep meetings, how do you like stage scenes, how do you execute a day. So if it's gonna happen, I would highly recommend you jump on it if you can. Miss Sandy.
How important is it to have a good attitude when you're working on the set, even if you're a shadow?
Oh, it's critical.
Can you lose a job, can you lose an opportunity to ever work in the industry again by being ousted by having a bad attitude?
Well, I mean, I think that to answer your question on a kind of macro level, I would say that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. So if somebody's not a right fit on a show, but they were a really talented person and they were removed from a situation, that very talented person could end up in a situation with another group of people where their strengths are understood and they can grow and change and be part of that show or be part of that group or whatever and do really well. Somebody with a genuinely sort of bad attitude about like, this industry sucks, I don't know why we're even doing this, like why do we tell these stories, they won't last long. So it's like having a good attitude, I think it's a little bit part of your DNA, whether you have a good attitude or you don't. But obviously keeping in the super positive attitude is a critical part. And people notice that. I mean, everybody notices a great attitude. Everybody notices when somebody is like super into it. So yes, being positive is very important. Sandy has another question.
How important is it to have a short film in your pocket so that when you are presented with an opportunity as a shadow and say, well, have you ever done anything? And you're able to whip one out and show someone who would be like, that's maybe an opportunity for you to be a director.
Totally.
And then never go back to editing ever again.
What?
Fred directed a short film and it was seen by somebody who was seen by J.J. Abrams, who he was working as an editor. He had a short film in his pocket and J.J. said, what do you want to do? He said, well, I want to direct. He said, well, have you ever done it before? He said, well, actually, here's something. Within within at least a year, I don't know, I wanna say the next day, but within a year, was given an opportunity to direct, and he never ever went back to editing. That was it. It was the episode.
Well, I'm bummed that I never went back to editing.
I know, but
You were bummed about that?
Totally.
Oh, wow.
I have OCD and I miss editing.
Can I ask about how your years of editing, how that influenced your visual, your visual awareness? as a
Yeah,
director?
totally. Well, I mean, I think that one of the, I don't know, Simon could probably speak to this as well, but like one of the kind of like misconceptions about editors is that like, I'll walk onto a set sometimes and somebody will say like, oh, you used to be an editor, you know what you want. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I know what I want. Like, no, I actually know that I want more than what I can actually do in the period of time that I have. Like, it's like I'd like 1,000 more pieces of things because I know I want the option to be able to do this. You know, I think there's a misconception that people believe that like editors are the kind of directors who just can shoot a one-shot thing because that's all you need. And so they're like, hey, we're gonna go home early because this guy used to be an editor. It's total opposite. Like, I completely will overshoot because it's not that I'm sorry?
You want coverage.
I want coverage. Yeah, it's not that I'm not willing to commit to something cool. As a matter of fact, I could probably show you an example of where I shot a oneer that. Anyway, so it's not that I don't want to do something like really super designed and cool, but I just know that in editing, I'm gonna want the option of, in context, getting out of it. And sometimes you don't have the luxury of shooting some way to get out of a shot. Sometimes you're stuck, and it is what it is, and that's the thing. I had one last year in Fallout. We were doing a scene out at a pool, and we had this party scene. It was supposed to be 6 hours of shooting, and I had an hour, and I designed a oneer. The entire party scene was done as a oneer. I did it in like an hour, and it was fine. It held up. It was great. No problem. Sometimes you're screwed. Sometimes you shot a oneer because you didn't have any, or you wanted it as a oneer, and you're not willing to admit that your film sucks because of the oneer you shot. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, it's beautiful, it's an amazing shot, and everybody's like watching your oneer, and they're like, yeah, it's terrible. So to me as an editor, I'm looking at it as like, I know that when I get the film put together and I look at it, I'm gonna have pretty strong opinions about whether that oneer was worth it and works, or if I need a way out. That's not some lame jump cut, that it's some kind of a thing that's gonna give it. So my editing experience informs my directing all the time by providing, yes, ways of getting out of problems, but also providing sort of, what do you call it? Opportunities for insecurity that I might need to do something else. Does that make sense? But I can construct a scene in my head because I was an editor. So like if I read a script, I can which helps a lot. Like if you're kind of like, I don't know, I want it scary, like that's hard. But like I can sit down and I can read a script and I can construct a scene shot by shot in my head pretty straightforward. And I think that's because I was an editor. You know what I mean? So I can and that helps because then you're like, I just need these 3 shots and we'll be fine. We can get, like that. So that being said, but it does also, as I said, provide a number of opportunities for insecurity when you're shooting.
Do you have a philosophy or like just rule of thumb? I'm just curious, like anything of just when to cut? Like when is it something like when your eye is moving? Like what is there? Yeah, is there any like ethos to when to cut?
That's interesting. I think if it was not narrative,
Okay.
I would have more trouble with it. But to me, sort of each shot tells us the story that it needs to tell. And if it's a 10-minute shot or a 2-second shot,
Yeah.
I have that in mind about what it's supposed to be doing. And so once that has completed its life cycle, I say cut.
Are you working with storyboards?
I do, yeah. I do work with storyboards. I'm right now working on a project. We're doing a lot of storyboarding. I like to work with storyboards when the artist that I'm working with, who's doing the storyboards, is in sync with me about how to tell the story. Because it's a lot of work to sit down with a storyboard artist and go frame by frame and literally say, no, camera's a little lower, camera's a little higher. No, it needs to go a little faster. So to me, storyboards are very helpful, and I have a storyboard artist that I work with regularly who knows my sensibilities, and he can draw for me. Wonderful. His name is Dan Kaplan, really great guy. So when I can sit down with Dan for an hour and talk through a scene and just let him go, and he comes back with a board that's great, then yes, it's awesome. When I have to step through those boards, and it becomes more work than just. And so the function of them is, like the function of the storyboards is to take them and show them to somebody, show them to a grip, and say, I want to do this shot. Oh, you want to be that high? Yes, I would like to be that high. And describe to them exactly what you want to do, and then have them be able to, in practical terms, say, you need a big crane for that, or I need to put that on a car, or whatever. So to me, the function of the storyboards is really not so much creatively for me, so much as it is really functionality to explain to all the wonderful craftspeople that I work with what I'd like to do so that they know how to do it. And they can help me, and they can say, oh, that's a cool shot. I think it'd be really cool on a Steadicam. So that's the storyboard function for me. And they're great. It's great to look at them and to go like, oh, that's a cool shot. Let's do that. I like them.
Do you prep all your VFX in pre-production?
Yes. Yeah. So it's very helpful to get ahead of it, because I think that, like, if you're doing a scene where, I mean, we can look at this Shogun and we could talk about that because that had a lot of visual effects in it.
Do you want to cue that up now?
I can, yeah. I can just answer the question really quick. If you just go, I'm going to do that and it's going to be really cool, it's fine because they can save you. But if you can specifically design the shot and exactly what its function is and what it's doing to tell the story, and ahead of time the visual effects artist can look at it, and they can even send the storyboard out to a house and say, this is the shot we want to do, and they can give a number back, and you can have realistic conversations ahead of time. It's incredibly helpful. Sabrina has a question.
I was just wondering, what's the process of hiring storyboard artists? Do you look at what their style is and if that mimics what the show is like?
Yes. I think a lot of hiring the artists is, of course, about recommendation. People will come to you with recommendations and say, this person's really great. And you look at their art and you're like, okay, that's kind of, because the storyboards themselves can be a visual style that sort of like inspires you, or they can just be very functional, and both of them are good. So it's really like about people that you feel comfortable with. And I think that it's like, to answer your question, the working with somebody who sees the show or movie the same way that you see it is super important. So that's how, but there's lots of different artists, and it's really just about sort of like meeting somebody and having the same sensibility as them about how to tell a story.
It's been a struggle with independent cinema to like find storyboard artists we can work with.
Yeah.
Right? Like at the indie level of like, cost.
Yeah, totally.
Situations with
Yeah.
like, short films. I've yet to like find storyboard artists where it's like,
They've got it. Yeah, right. You probably have to go through the very painful process of like describing each shot. Have you ever heard of Shot Deck?
Yes.
So I think Shot Deck's a great way to start, because you pull up an image and you're like, okay, this is kind of the idea, and then look at the clip and talk specifically about what that function of that shot is and what it's doing, and then see if you can get that person to draw it. But it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Sabrina can do it for you.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry.
Hey, how close do you stick to your storyboards when you're shooting?
How close?
Yeah. Big shows that you do.
I would love to say that I stick to them, but I have like a seriously like a PTSD pet peeve from early in my career. If you want to talk about things that have been damaging for me as it's storyboards in particular, and here's why: is because like when I first started, the storyboards would be used as let's say a bargaining chip. And so what producers would do is they'd be like, oh, here's Fred's storyboards. And they put them up on a whiteboard and they'd stick them on the set. And they would start crossing off the shots as I would get them. And now, remember, these storyboards were for me, right? But the producer, who's the money person, right, would put them up and use them as sort of like evidence that I wasn't going to make my day. And they'd be like, I see you have 18 shots and you've done 2. What is your plan? So that happened to me probably 4 times maybe, and then it was over for me publishing storyboards. So I
Different people,
Yeah.
different producers making that same.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. So doesn't even if somehow the boards get posted at some point on a set, it doesn't happen to me anymore because I was younger then. But I still have PTSD from it, so I'm a little bit quiet about the boards, and I give them to the DP, the AD, the script supervisor, and the visual effects person, and I'm not hiding them or whatever. I'm just not putting them on a big board in front of everybody going like, we're doing this grand, whatever. I just don't do it. So but how much do I stick to it? I'd like to say that I stick to it more than I actually do. It sort of organically ends up getting stuck to, because if you, like sometimes with boards, if you shot them in the way in which they're drawn, it would take you 10 times longer than what you have. So sometimes you have to combine, like there's a piece that does this, and then you're panning over and you're finding out, and it's all the same shot, and it's all working as the same shot. So in the cut, it ends up being very similar to the storyboard, but it wasn't executed in the way in which it looks on the board. So to me, as I said, I have a pretty clear picture in my head about how I want to shoot something. So the boards are supplementing, they're not informing to me. So it's like, it doesn't mean that I don't get great ideas from them, but I'm just saying that like I stick to them as much as I need to stick to them in order to get through the day. But I'm a little careful about showing everybody and like looking like an ass when you don't get through the day and you have like 25 shots you were supposed to get. So, do you want to look at that one? So
While he's setting that up, Fred, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about the soul of a show,
Yeah.
or the soul of a series, and in a series you have multiple voices of directors. How do you retain that consistency for the sake of the soul of the series?
That's a great question. I think what I try to do is, let's say, what's a nice way to say like walk the walk, talk the talk? It's a little bit about showmanship for the purposes of both producers, writers, actors, and everyone around you, to sort of present the director that's like going to make them feel confident. Like, so I think if you're looking to find a soul in a story and you're still discovering it, which you always are when you're making the thing, if you reveal the fact that it's like, and you're sitting on set incredibly insecure, people start to feel insecure, people are not sure what the plan is, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, I thought we talked about doing this, like all that stuff happens. So I'm not saying that, you can see that I'm not like a showman, I'm not a showman kind of a person, but I do have a kind of a game face when shooting, so that it appears as though the plan is going more or less to plan. But meanwhile, because that's really like, we talked about this, we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna do that thing, because that's all happening very functionally, I can spend all of my free time thinking about how to achieve something unique within the performances, within the story, and so I'm always churning while I'm presenting the kind of like, yeah, we're gonna do this, it's gonna be great, but I'm constantly cooking, and that's where the discoveries are, and I think that's the soul of the story, is it's like, it's not gonna happen the way we all talked about. And it's gonna seem like a surprise that it happened that way, but it's not really a surprise because I spent the last 3 hours planning this thing that we didn't talk about that's actually gonna happen. So to me, it's like having, you want the crew on your side, you want the actors on your side, you want them to feel confident. It's not hard to do that. You just have to be relatively assured. But you also don't want it to happen by rote, because if everything happens completely as you expected, it will be not as good. Like, it needs to have a freshness to it, and the freshness to it comes from the ability to discover while it's happening. So I know that's a hard thing to like put on anybody, to say like, hey, you gotta have a game face and you gotta have a creative space at the same time, but you kind of do. Make sense?
Yeah. How much time do you get to prep on a typical episode?
If it was like a network TV show, it would be like 7 days. On a streaming show, it's more like, for one episode, like 12.
Oh, wow. More on the stream.
Much, yeah, they take longer to shoot.
I wanted to piggyback off of the kind of soul conversation a little bit, and like the soul and intent of an episode within a big picture. Like when things are shifting on set, you're having to change, and you're trying to hold on to the kind of emotional aspects of the material. are you like finding themes in the scenes that kind of like are through lines throughout all the decision making process? Like
Yes.
loneliness or whatever that may be.
Yes.
And like how do you, as something is changing, maintain that in the change? And do you have any stories you could tell that are kind of like this big thing changed and we had to kind of hold on to this theme?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe you should talk about tone meetings.
Yeah.
So that
Totally.
everyone's-
Yeah. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the tone meeting with the writer is critical to sort of like getting to the root of what was intended in the story. So when you talk about something like loneliness or whatever, if you can tap into that, and because my job isn't to act the scenes, my job isn't to light the scenes, right? My job is to tell the story and to use all those resources in order to tell that story, right? So effectively, if I know that I want a soulful moment of loneliness out of this scene, and it's a party, right? And it changed into a party. And in the tone meeting, we talked about that tone and how are you going to get that in a party. Whether the actor is standing in the center of a dance floor or that actor is in a room listening to the party in the other room, or I can flex on that. Like literally, I could be like, hey, I guess we're not doing the party thing. We're going to do this thing. And then I need to use the camera and I need to use sound in order to tell that story. I mean, an amazing scene. I remember Babel. Were you thinking about that?
Yeah, when you were saying this.
Yeah, there's an awesome dance sequence in Babel where this deaf woman goes into all these nightclubs and stuff like that. And they used sound to tell this story of like she's experiencing this thing and she's like totally in this space, but she can't hear anything. But like you could tell a story like that. You can be in the middle of a dance floor, it's dark and it's crazy and the lights are flashing, and you push through this crowd and you kind of find this person and you see the back of their head and they're not moving the way everybody else is moving, and they're like, and then you kind of come around and you see their face and they've been crying and you see tears on their face, and then you kind of pull the sound out, right? So but the point is the same. Right? So to me, it's like if you don't understand the point of the scene, that's a huge problem. And one of the things I noticed as an editor, I think Simon and I talked about this at one time too, that like directors not understanding what the scene is about, you know very well when you're an editor, because you're like, okay, I have a whole bunch of great footage, but this is not the story that we're supposed to tell, and you got to go find the story in the footage. So when I was editing, I would very often find that the director, their idea of what the scene was or what they were trying to tell was not in alignment with the show. So part of my training as a television director was really seeing that like getting aligned with the writing, having an alignment with the writers is really critical to being rehirable as a director, because if you're telling a different story, then you're not going to come back. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to get this off to here?
So I wanted to use this clip. I have two clips. I have another one from The Boys, but we don't have to watch that. So had you guys seen that? I think thank you. Thanks very much.
Tour de force.
Huh?
It was a tour de force.
Oh. So the reason why I wanted to show that is because it was, from a directing standpoint, it was a challenge which I was excited to take on, and that was the story. First of all, it was beautifully written, but the story itself was literally like Blackthorn's going to break up with Mariko and leave Japan. And right at that moment, where effectively like there's no place for the story to go, there's an earthquake, and Toranaga's army is wiped out. That's the story, right? That was the basic story you had to tell, right? That could be done in a very clunky way if you're not careful. And so I didn't have an earthquake. I had to create one, right? I didn't have 10,000 man army, right? And the idea of, from a story standpoint, of like literally, I'm going to break up with you, is lame, right? So you had to come up with a way to sort of like tell it in a subtle way so that the mechanics of the story were not visible, and it was really more about the emotional experience of the characters, right? So to me, first of all, I had experienced we'd experienced earthquakes our entire lives here in California, and the '94 earthquake was traumatizing for me, so I had feelings about earthquakes that I felt that were part of me, you know, that like an earthquake is a scary thing. But what is an earthquake visually? if you're just telling, because it wasn't written as a landslide or anything. It was just literally like an earthquake that destroys a 10,000 person army. Well, an earthquake is like, it's like, how interesting is that cinematically, right? I couldn't find a good way to do it. So I was like looking for inspiration, and I landed on the Jungle Book, the version that was done in 2015, whenever that was. There's like a landslide sequence in that movie where he's riding on the back of a ox or whatever, and there's a massive landslide. And I saw the landslide, and I was like, this is super impressive. That was a CG movie. But like, I saw the landslide, and I was like, it's got to be a landslide. And we had experienced landslides where we live, and so I was terrified of them, right? And that's I think part of why it's effective is because I personally am terrified by landslides. So, but in terms of shooting it and figuring out how to kind of piece it together in order to make it effective, to me it was like I started from story. It's like, what's the story? Well, it's this emotional break that's happening in the story. I personally felt like it was clunky to go straight from I'm going to break up with you to so I created this moment there where you see Tornaga sort of gets a spidey sense of it. He gets a sense of it, that the horses start reeling and whatever, and he kind of steps away, and the story then takes you to that. Why is he standing on the edge of that cliff? Why is he blown off this conversation? And Tornaga's standing there, and there's sort of like a mysticism to that moment that distracts you from the fact that they're breaking up. And then you see the starlings kind of come out of the tree. Like, that was all in order to kind of like a little smoke and mirror you about what was actually going to happen in the story, right? And then the earthquake itself, it was literally like, how do you design shots that are not going to just look stupid as the landslide starts to happen? And it's really about having like, it's just like kind of thinking about like, well, if I have some foreground element here, and then they make the CG land, so it's like dragging those guys. Literally, that was not some $25 million. I mean, it's literally like two dudes standing on floor mats. We had floor mats that we covered with dirt, and we attached wire to them, and there were a couple of guys just literally like pulling them to make them look like they're falling, and then we added dirt and stuff like that. And the shot with Mariko where she's sitting and the ground starts to shake, that's literally like a little motor attached to a piece of plywood, and we just put rocks on it so the rocks would move. And so we just had a little shaker motor, like that. And then the actual part of Tornaga falling, he's not falling off of any cliff. He's literally just like, as an actor, just like dropping out of frame, right? And then the set piece of them jumping and running down, that was a whole other set piece because there was no way we were going to be able to like destroy any land, right? So that was just like a piece. We built that, but you could shoot that on the side of a hill somewhere that looks like a landslide.
Like, what did you build?
It was it looked like a big like a big slide, like a kid's slide. It was probably about 20 feet high, and it was constructed out of wood, and it was just basically like a ramp like this, and we just built it up with fake rocks and stuff like that. And then there was like a little box in the ground that the actor could stay in, but it wasn't the actor, it was a stunt person, because you don't want to bury an actor alive. We had a stunt person in there, he had a breathing tube on. So like he was right below that, there was like a little platform thingy here. And so when they get down to the bottom of it, the stunt guy was down there with a he just had a little, it wasn't like a whole apparatus, he just had a little breather, and he was under there waiting for the cue. And so they dig, and then we give him the cue. I was on a radio and I cued him. And then he kind of like presented his shoulder so they could grab his shoulder, and then they pulled him. He had to hold it. He had to, from the time he had to put the regulator down to the time that he was, that stuntman that was out of that thing was probably like 30, 40 seconds. So it wasn't really dangerous, but it looks real, right? And he's a dead match. The guy, his name was also Hiro. Hiro Sanada is the guy that plays Tornaga, but Hiro was also the stunt guy that looked just like him. So he was a dead match for him. So you can't tell, even if you look really carefully, that it's the stunt guy doing it. But then you had Hiro Sanada playing Tornaga, who's waiting in the wings for his chance to play this role of being saved by Blackthorn, of almost dying. And he's watching all the stuntman doing all the shots, and he's, it's like you're not torturing that actor. The actor's ready to go, and you get him down the thing. We threw dirt all over him, and then we shot him, and I did it maybe 2 takes, maybe 1 take, maybe, to get it. But he was ready to go. He was like, the actor was totally primed and excited, and like, this is his chance. And it was an amazing performance, So, but I'm only just presenting this as an idea of like, it isn't like money and time necessarily magically present themselves. It's really about the creativity of sort of like breaking things down into their component pieces and just trying to sandwich it together. I mean, I don't want to say that this was low budget, but it was made in a low budget way. It wasn't done with some big apparatus. I mean, literally, like, it's a hillside and another hillside, you know what I mean, and a box with a stunt guy coming out of it. So I only wanted to say that to say that, like, you know, or to use that as an example to sort of like show that like things can be done on a budget. Simon and I took this class with this guy named Yuri Weiss, who was a Czech filmmaker, and I remember one specific class where he was like, here's how you make a dance scene look really big. And he made us all do it. And we had like 4 people or 5 people or something like that. And he was like, you put a long lens on the camera, you turn the lights off, and you get tight and you stay in, you know, it's like, so like learning those skills about how to be scrappy, like it's a really super important part of the process. Yes, Miss Sandy.
That's why they call it movie magic.
Oh yes, I think so. It is. It is movie magic, and it is magic when it's happening. Well, it's actually magic when you see it all finished. Sometimes it's not magic when it's happening, but it is magic when it's all finished.
Are there opportunities, like, as far as like, because, you know, I'm directing and I want to continuously improve as a director.
Yeah.
And right now it's like fundraising for the next thing.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
a lot of grind.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, do you know of any further directing workshops other than shadowing, which is wonderful?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think if you can get involved in like an acting company
Yeah.
and work with actors. Do you like actors?
I also find.
Okay, good. So you know the process. Like if you can get involved in workshopping with actors where you're just doing scene study, I would find that really critical because the skills that you use in order to like use the camera and to tell the story are one thing, but to work with actors and to understand how to work with actors and what is important as your job as a director. I mean, this thing is like everybody's different. Every director is different. Some people are actors, directors. I am one. Some people are not, and they consider the actors an enemy to their story. If you like actors and you are one yourself, like you'll probably like them and you probably like working with them. And I think that like workshopping scene study is critical, because I think that one of the things that gets missed a lot of the time is that like, oh, I'm doing this cool earthquake scene for this show. You know, it's like, as a director, you really need to come to that scene with, you need to know pretty precisely what Mariko's point of view is during that sequence. You need to know what Blackthorn's point of view is. You need to know what Tornaga's point of view is. You also need to know what Nagakato, his son's point of view is, in order to talk to those actors to drive them through that scene. Like you guys probably didn't notice Nagakato, which is his son, too much in that scene because he just comes in at the end. But he's cut to at least twice, and he's cut to in the moment in which his father gets unburied, when the sword that belonged to Fuji's father gets passed off to Toranaga as his ceremonial sword, which is a huge deal. If you're following the story at that point, you know that that's the sword that gets passed off. That's a huge deal for the son to see his father accept that sword. Like all those, and if you don't know those character arcs, if you're not clear on them, you won't know how to bring them out or how to push them in the background if you don't want them. So it's like scene study is critical, I think. Like being able to go through and break down a character and break down a scene so that you know when you're coming to the scene what the actors are doing.
If you're on a time crunch, on set, trying to get the actor to go a certain direction that they're not quite grasping, or it's hard to communicate with that actor, do you have like fail-safe tools?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I do think that experience and time, which is why I think workshopping with actors is an important skill set, is there's no magic bullet. Everybody's different. Every actor has a different approach. And if I'm, and I don't want to say that I can handle any situation, because I can't. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes you hit a brick wall and you're just not going to get there. Sometimes you're working with somebody incredible, world famous actor, and like you give them the smallest note and all of a sudden they do this incredible thing that you never expected. Like it's every possible range from 0 to 100, the experiences of working with actors, and I can't say there's one rule of thumb that I can use to say, here's the way to get here. I really think it's about understanding. I think it's really about understanding what that act. I mean, the fundamental thing I'll say is, if you as a director can understand what the actor's doing, not what you want from them, that's easy. But what are they doing? What do they come to this with? Because they come with something. It's a choice that they're making. If you don't understand the choice that they're making, it's going to be very difficult for you as a director to be able to get a different performance out of that person. You have to understand the choice. If you can read the choice and you got it, then you can find tools, and there's all kinds of acting tools of, phrases people use, or methodology they use, or storytelling, whatever. There's a million different ways that you can direct actors, but I think that you have to understand what they're doing before you can redirect them, even if they're just not doing a great job. You have to know what their motivation is.
I was just gonna say on that point, it is really interesting, however, that you do, so as a wife, I show up at a lot of these events, and I will say that I can't even tell you how many times an actor has particularly come up to me and thanked me for him, because of the fact that he's very kind and very respectful, but also that you're very patient, and that they say that they trusted you. That is, like, I think, if I couldn't say it across the board, and maybe you can just talk to that a little bit, because you've had a variety of actors that I can't even, there's so few, it's such a vast range, but they all have that one thing in common, that they trusted you, that they felt as though you weren't, can you explain how it is that you go into a situation
totally.
and you can make them so trusting, and that they're willing to open up because they trust in you?
I think that, in a funny, well, first of all, basically, you need the actors to trust you, right? Because otherwise they're not going to be willing to expose themselves. They're going to come up with a thing of like, well, this director's kind of an asshole, but I'm going to just do my thing. Just tell me when I'm, and you can't really, as a director, reach an actor who doesn't trust you. And you maybe can in some ways if they respect you. Like, for example, if you're John Frankenheimer, it's like, it doesn't matter if he literally spits in my face. He's the director, and I'm going to just do what I want for him. That's in some rare cases that there are super powerful directors who just get the respect no matter who they are. But generally speaking, for me, I need to earn the trust of the actors. How do I earn the trust of the actors? I never betray them. Like, I don't betray them. Like, and how do you betray an actor? It's super easy to betray an actor in the first 5 seconds that you meet them. I mean, literally, they can hate you within the first 30 seconds that you're there if you say the wrong thing to them. And what are some typical things that you can do to betray an actor? Tell them that you heard in the trailer that they were doing a thing that the other actor doesn't do, and therefore why don't they get together on a weekend and try to figure out how to do it together? Or tell them that, or talk to a writer about their performance, and then turn around and say the opposite thing to the actor when the actor heard you say it to the writer. Go to the writer and say, can you go give the actor that line reading? Go to the script supervisor and say, go tell that actor they said the wrong word. Go to the producer and say, I can't work with this actor, and then turn around and smile at their face and offer them some coffee. Like, there's 1,000 ways you can piss off an actor, and you just have to learn not to do it. And you have to actually not betray them, like, trust them. Go like, you're my partner in this, we're partners. Like, I can't tell the story without you. How am I gonna partner with you as an actor and learn how to guide with you this story together? And I think that if I start from that place, I mean, it's so funny because like Hitchcock is like one of my heroes. He hated actors, and he talked all the time about like that they're in the way. And I never understood how he made such great movies. And then I did a lot more reading about the way he told stories, and I realized that he did a little bit like Woody Allen does. He would set up the scenario, and he would just let them go. And that's a different kind of directing. I mean, Woody Allen doesn't direct the actors at all. I mean, he literally just like sets the scenario, gives them one take, maybe two, and that's it, and it's over. If he doesn't like what they're doing, he fires them and replaces them with somebody else. I'm a person who works with actors, so I don't find that a type of filmmaking I could do. And also, times have changed. Like, things don't go that way so much anymore. I think people really do have to interact with the actors. So to me, I form an alliance as much as I can and hope that I can inspire them into a performance that'll be in alignment with the story that I'm trying to tell.
I agree 100% with Sandy. Simon has the same thing. He's really a nice director.
Yeah.
I get compliments also. They'll come to me and say, he's so nice, he's so accommodating, you know, and it does draw people out more. We've also worked with other directors where I'll be on set and they'll do that, what you just said. They'll alienate the actor right off the bat, and it changes the entire thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to recover back. I've watched this one director in particular. He just he kind of like just burned out the whole crew, and everybody was just like didn't want to do anything. He just obliterated the whole thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
It is. It's critical. Like, and with the crew as well. You can also betray the crew very quickly by calling them idiots or talking behind their backs or being condescending when something doesn't happen at the pace or speed in which you want to have it happen. You carry a lot of weight on your shoulders with the money and the time, right? It's like, okay, we have, in the case of these streaming shows, now a day cost on a streaming show now is something in the neighborhood of $500,000, which is crazy. But that's what it's costing now these days to film in any US city, just with the size of the crew. Like, so you have this huge responsibility to make this day, the time that you have. So when you're carrying around all that responsibility and carrying all that weight around, and somebody comes up and is just like, oh, we don't have any track, we gotta, you know, like it's very easy for you to get frustrated. But that one little outburst that you have, or that one little thing that you do is like, he got it, they heard it, they're talking to that, like very quickly, you're an asshole.
Yep.
So you gotta be super careful. I mean, I'm super careful. I know there's a lot of people that still yell at the crew all the time and still get along just fine. I mean, Michael Bay is a classic example. Like there are certain directors who can get away with just yelling at everybody all the time. I can't, and I don't. Yes?
You mentioned you were going to say something about that other shot, slow motion.
Oh, yes. Okay, that was a oneer that was, okay. So from the time, so the idea, thank you. The idea of that scene, and the reason why it's important to the sort of low budge conversation is the scene was after the end of the earthquake, Blackthorn arrives back in Ajiro and it's destroyed from the earthquake, and Fuji's injured, right? That Fuji is his consort. He cares about her. His house has been destroyed, right? We could not afford to destroy anything. We could not afford to tear down those houses because they had to be used for later episodes. We could not, it literally was like, figure it out. So me and Sam McCurdy, the DP, who's awesome, smoked the shit out of it. We laid, you know, Helen Jarvis, who's wonderful, our production designer, she laid palm fronds and shit all over the place, and we lit a fire, and we had some injured people and whatever. But I thought the most effective way to tell that story was a oneer. It was like, I'm going to do a oneer here. I'm going to do it, and then I talked to the showrunners. I'm like, this is a oneer. This is what we're going to do. It's a one-shot thing. And we had horses, and we had, you know, it's like we put all the time into like making that one shot. And the way we did it was we started on a crane with a Ronin head, and so the crane kind of boomed down as Blackthorn comes out of the smoke, and then two grips grabbed the head, the camera head, and walked it through the set, and we did a little wrap around, and then he went around. So it was a oneer.
And it was beautiful.
It was really good. Yeah, it was really good. It was good.
It was so great.
Yeah, it was really good. But the reason why it was good was not just because it was a cool shot, but it functioned the way that I believe that shot needed to function, which was in that point in the story when the earthquake had happened and everything had broken apart. Toranaga lost his army. He was leaving Japan. The shit was going down. You needed to believe in that scene. It was critical for you to believe in that scene that Blackthorn was going to stay, that he couldn't leave. he'd fallen in love with his people and the town and the people that are around him taking care of him, that his time in Japan was not over. And the earthquake event and the destruction of Ajiro needed to tell that story. It needed to tell the story of like Blackthorn staying, right? So what happened when you watch that shot play as a oneer, what happened is you have time to think. You're spending a couple of seconds there just going like, oh wow, this is awful, oh dear. And then when he comes up and he sits next to Fuji, puts his hand on her, on hers, there's this touching moment of like, okay, I think he's finally gotten it. I think he kind of understands. I think he understands this culture. He understands the eightfold fence, which was described by Mariko in the previous episode. I think he gets this idea that there are these boundaries and life happens whether you want it to or not. So I felt like the oneer was telling that story. It turned out that in the context of the overall show, that shot needed to be cut up. I argued against it. I lost. But that was one of those things where you can't let your heart get broken over that kind of stuff, because in the context of the show, I don't think anybody has gone back to episode 5 and said, I didn't get that story point. It was still there, just like we were talking about earlier, where you're just like, everything I did sucked, and yet people are crying about my movie. This was one of those examples. Like, I busted my ass. I rehearsed that scene for 8 hours before we shot. We did 2 takes. And it doesn't live in the way that I intended it to be, but it still has the same effect. I think people still feel the same thing from it than if it, like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's wrong with that scene? It's like, it's nothing like I planned. You know what I mean? But it still works.
Did you shoot cover up?
No.
Like, so it's just, you were just
Jump
cut
cut.
around, just cut out.
I was not involved in the jump cutting. I was very upset about it.
The rotation was cut out, right? It just kind of went from this to this, or was there?
So yeah, it was basically like the shot came down. He comes walking around the thing, and then you follow him, right? You follow him out. He comes and stops and turns. The camera wrapped around him this way, and then he went up towards the fire, and we wrapped behind him, and then we came around the fire, and he goes around the opposite side of the fire, and there's where the horses come across. And then we follow him into the house, and then we wrap around into the close-up of the hand. So they basically cut from this shot to this shot. So they followed him for a second, and then they cut to this shot, and they drag him back, and then they cut to this shot, and it took about 15 seconds out of it.
Yeah,
Not that much.
but you didn't, I don't think we noticed it.
Yeah, you don't feel like, oh my God, that scene sucks, or that's
Yeah.
rushed, or whatever. But believe me, the oneer version was better.
Sure.
Do you consider any of this, the kind of work you're talking about as writing? Like where,
I think it is, yeah. I think it's always writing.
that's what it strikes me as.
Yeah.
Because you're figuring out a different way to tell this story.
Yes. I mean, I think it's, I look at it as like, what's the story? And that's what we were talking earlier about the tone meeting. Like the tone meeting, you sit down with a writer and you go like, what's in your soul? Like, why did you write this scene? And you get that information, or you read it yourself and you have your own sense of it or whatever. And then as a director, you've got all these tools available to you to tell it. You know what I mean? It may be written a specific way, and maybe your boss wants you to shoot it that way, but you don't necessarily have to. And I think you rewrite as you're shooting all the time. But it's, again, like if you're just rewriting while you're shooting just to change it and not to follow the story, then you get into trouble. Anybody else?
How many days did you have to shoot all those 3 pieces, I guess, the first part?
Oh, how long did it take to do the earthquake?
And the other.
And that other piece. So that the oneer was 1 day. We were shooting, they call it French hours, but up in Vancouver they call it Pacific Northwest hours. So it was a 9 hour straight day, no lunch. So that was a day. The earthquake was 2 days. 1 day of the dialogue and all the other stuff on the hill. And then there was a half a day in that set where they come down and they uncover him. That was like a half a day. So I want to say it was like 3 total, top to bottom, something like that. It's not that many.
I know this is a hard question.
Yes,
but
I'm ready.
I'm wondering what your favorite project has been. I can never pick a favorite, so I always ask people that, but I would never.
I don't know that I
pick a
can.
favorite.
I don't know that I can pick a favorite, honestly, because like I said, I have to kind of fall in love with all of them.
What happens if you don't?
If I don't fall in love with it,
Yeah,
it's not going to be very good.
right.
Do you
'Cause-
pass on them?
What's that?
Have you passed on those?
I've passed on things,
Yeah.
yes, I
Cause
have.
I feel like that's a thing too, like I know Simon and I have turned down projects if we don't, first of all, if they don't align with like our morals and ethics, we really struggle with that. Like
Mhm.
we just make a decision that we,
It's not worth it.
yeah. Like
Life's too short.
We had a director come to us one time, we worked on a project with him for 2 months. In the beginning, we knew we shouldn't have really gotten involved with it, it was really like, there was so much death and murder in it.
Mhm.
My first thing was, man, this is gonna be expensive, there's a lot of blood. But I remember like ultimately we ended up not doing it, and
Yeah.
I was relieved, because, I think we felt like we should do it.
Mhm.
And it was a good lesson for us that we really didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
And so it just, I agree with you, like if you don't really love something, or like you said, maybe you'll eventually like kind of get into it and you'll go, oh, wait a minute, I do love this, you know?
It takes a bit sometimes.
But you
Yeah.
can't sell it and you can't show the audience quality, I don't think, if you yourself can't.
It's true.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So it's hard to say the ones, I mean, I would say if I were looking back, the things that people loved, that people respond to, that come to me and say, I watched that thing and it was really powerful, those are the things that I'm most in love with.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like the stuff that people respond to. I mean, it's like, we had no idea making Shogun. Seriously. No, that sounds like horseshit. No idea whether people would get it. I mean, you're making a show about, there's no battles, there's no massive, we didn't do the Battle of Sekigahara, we didn't like, it was this emotional story about a woman who ultimately, you think it's about Blackthorn, but it's really about Mariko. It's about this sacrifice that she makes for Tornaga, like understanding what seppuku and suicide is in that culture, and it's 90% subtitled. Like, this could have been a total bomb, right? Who knows, you know? But it had this huge reception. People loved it. You know, I got a bunch of awards. I mean, do I love that show? Of course I love that show because people liked it. You know, I've done things that I was just as in love with when I was making them that were total bombs, and I can't say that I don't like them. It's just I don't think about it much.
I think that's great you love that you can't choose, because that means I feel that means that you really are like happy and satisfied with what you're doing, and
Yes,
you really
totally.
like it. Yeah, I hope
Of
you
course.
like it.
I mean, to me, it's like, I love the process. It's really super fun, but it's great when people respond. I mean, you know, you do it because you want to see people respond to it. Sabrina had a question.
Can you like generally choose what your favorite episode or favorite shot is in a specific show, even if you can't choose your favorite project?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, there's tons of like moments that I think are great, that are like, oh my God, this is an incredible
Can you
moment.
choose one specific?
Oh, you want me to pick one out? I had a scene in Watchmen that was so hard to do and so hard to figure out, but it was done in a way that, you know, just like we're talking about the earthquake, like how do you do something so absurd and difficult with no resources and make it look cool, right? I had a scene in Watchmen where, so at the end of, I did the finale of that show, and at the end of it, they capture Dr. Manhattan in a cage made out of watch batteries. And Dr. Manhattan gets killed off by the 7th Cavalry, which is this sort of like evil cabal of people, right? And this, what was written in the story, I worked on Lost, and so I knew Damon from Lost, and he wrote this concept that the Millennium Clock, which was this super famous thing from the book, from Watchmen, hovers over the city. It emanates this thing, and at this certain moment, the whole setting that they're in gets transported. Like the entire thing gets transported to this sort of, it gets transported from kind of like an empty mall to the middle of a town square. And the whole sequence plays out there where the bad guys are all sitting in this half church, and they all basically get eviscerated by it was super absurd. And so I had no way of getting them visually from the one space to the other. And we ended up talking about it, and Damon pitched the idea of like, why don't you just make it a character moment? Like, just don't even worry about trying to transport it. It's like literally just keep it in the character. And these were two massive sets. The exterior set was both a location in Decatur, Georgia, but also 3 sound stages in Atlanta. And the B side of it was a mall. It was an empty mall, or the A side of it was an empty mall, the B side was in this thing. But it was like literally a thing of like, you're in this moment with Regina King, and she's having this total meltdown, and she gets the kind of magnetic pulse happens, and she has this sort of like tripping, and I did it all as one shot. So I connected the two locations with one shot and just kept it inside of her character, and you're totally with her, and then you kind of come out, and it becomes kind of blurry, and it was a combination of like lensing, the way we lensed it, and the way she performed it. But to be able to like stitch together two gigantic, complicated sequences and believe that it actually, like have the audience actually believe that they're in a mall and now all of a sudden they're in a town square and the Millennium Clock is showing up over the top of them, and it's like that I remember that one. It was hard to do. Although all the ones that are hard I can remember how to do. Like a lot of the hard ones, and it's like hard is fun to me. It's like the challenge of it is really cool, you know?
What was your favorite? Was the earthquake in the sequence that was that your favorite of Shogun?
Oh, that's a good question. No, there were some scenes, I would say. There were some emotional scenes between Blackthorn and Mariko that are my favorite. Because I thought they were both two wonderful actors, and they had some very intimate philosophical conversations that I think were really powerful, that I really enjoyed. So I think that like the scene work, like the visuals were cool, but I think that the scene work of the characters, like the performances and the way those were executed, I think those are probably my favorite. There's one particularly when she's sitting out by these rocks in this trees, and we made it snow, and he comes up to her and he tries to convince her that she should leave her husband and all. There's a scene that's probably my favorite scene in the show.
Bruce, maybe one or two more questions? Maybe that's it?
Looks like we may be.
Anybody else? Okay, good.
Great. Great
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you.